universities represented here this morning. I just want to reinforce what my two colleagues or the earlier presenters had done or have talked about. But I asked myself, what should I talk about? And I just want to talk about why research is important. Why is research important? And I'm saying that no matter what career field you are in or how high up you are, there is always more to learn. And even in our personal lives. So no matter how many experiments you have or how diverse, how many experiences you have or how diverse your social circle, there are things you don't know. And research unlocks the unknowns. It allows us to explore the world from different perspectives and fuels a deeper understanding. In some areas, research is an essential part of success. In others, it may not be absolutely necessary, but it has many benefits. And I want to discuss some of the benefits of doing research. The first one, I think, is that research expands your knowledge base. So you cannot be an authority in an area without engaging in the research in that area. And research allows us to build on our personal experiences and opens up new opportunities for learning and growth. So the young scholars in this room and my colleagues, we can only expand, we'll expand our knowledge base if we engage with research. And sometimes I tell people, research is an odious path. So if you know that you really don't have the knack or the time, then it's better not to be in that area. The other day, I was boarding a flight from Eldoret. There was a delay at 11:30 in the night. And Churchill, the TV star, was among the last to enter the plane. And everybody was turning. But I saw many other important people enter that plane. Nobody looked at them. So, why are you sitting in this space of research? Why don't you become a Churchill? Yeah, and you'll be noticed. I'm saying something. Research gives us the latest information. When you do research, you actually stand at the new frontiers. And in many fields, particularly scientific ones, there is always new information and discoveries being made. So staying updated prevents you from falling behind and giving information that is inaccurate or that doesn't paint the whole picture. And I think our AG put that point very strongly. With the latest information, you'll be better equipped to talk about a subject and build on ideas. You know, when I was on this trip to US for fundraising, the first call was at University of Iowa. And I visited their School of Business, a huge center. And then I was interested. I asked them to show us around, and they took us to their library. And you know, we were walking in this space, and they kept on talking about the library. And for me, I had not yet entered the library, because their library does not have bookshelves like our library at River or Nairobi University, where you have stacks and stacks and stacks of books. Their library is an open space with round tables, with sockets on the tables, and students go and plug in. And there's also a place where there are sofa sets. People are able to sit and discuss. There are other places where you can do presentations. They have a library of the 21st century. So you see, I was doing some kind of research, and I sat there and I asked myself, my God, what are we offering in Daystar for a library? So what have they done with their books? They have taken all their books and cataloged and kept them in another space. And when you want a book, you just punch in, search, and the librarian will tell you or bring that book to where you are. So you are not walking on shelves looking for books. And that space where stacks are loaded is now what is called the engagement areas in the library. So yesterday I had a council meeting, and we agreed they are going to give me money. I am going to remove all the shelves in the library at the River. It will never look like that. I want tables, I want chairs, I want coffee shops where you can take your coffee or your juice and come and sit and study. That is the library. So you see, if you don't do research, this was research. I was looking around. Our library would remain the same. And it is not functional. Research helps us to know what we are up against. So now I know Daystar versus Iowa University. I know what I am up against. So just like any other business, the knowledge business, we have competition. So researching your competitors and what they're up to helps you formulate your plans and strategies. So because I went to Iowa, yesterday during our budget, the council has given me 12 million shillings. I want to buy furniture for that library, modern furniture, so that we can look like others. That is translated. That is Kimaragoli translated. We can look like others. But on a serious note, even in other types of research like medicine, your research might identify diseases, classify symptoms, and come up with ways to tackle them. Even if your enemy isn't an actual person or competitor, there is always some kind of antagonistic force or problem that research can help you deal with. You know, we have a problem, and my colleagues, particularly those of us teaching research, we have a problem, and we have to do some research. Are we honest with ourselves, with the intensity of research instruction in Daystar? We have to ask ourselves that question. What is the level of mastery both at undergraduate, master's, and PhD level, of the methods and the processes of research. Until we become honest with ourselves, we shall continue to struggle in the area of publishing, but also in the areas of attracting grants to our university. Research builds your credibility. Point number 4, research makes you credible. People will take what you have to say more seriously when they can tell you are informed. So doing research gives you a foundation on which you can build your ideas and opinions. You can speak with confidence about what you know is accurate. When you have done research, it's much harder for someone to poke holes in what you are saying. If your research consists of opinions from non-experts, you won't be very credible. When your research is good, though, people are more likely to pay attention. And I've been pushing my director of research that it is not acceptable that a university such as ours is not able to attract huge grants. But do you know where the problem comes from? The problem is our grounding in research methods. So, we must build capacity. Because we know that's where the problem is. We must build capacity so that we can be ahead of our competitors. I think credible research, this project we are working on, Sister Lando, I think you're leading that team with my brother, Dr. Yugi, and myself, with UNDP. You know, we have not reached that level up there just by accident. It takes grounding in research for UNDP to tell Daystar we are sending 50 million for you to do research across Kenya. So how do you go ahead of your competitors? And 50 million is not good enough. The Center of Excellence at Moi University, we won a grant of 600 million. The digital tablets we are assembling at Moi University and giving to schools, that project was about between 700 and 900 million. You know, that is almost the budget for Phyllis, for Daystar. Daystar hovers around $1 billion in a year. And one grant can bring that $1 billion, can bring $1 billion to the university. But if you're doing credible research, then outside here in this parking lot, you'd have seen many vehicles, either ICDC with Daystar University Research Project, or UNDP with Daystar University Research Project, or World Bank Centers of Excellence and Daystar University. I am emphasizing that if we don't punish ourselves inside the research methods classes, we shall not compete with our competitors. Research helps you narrow your scope. Badala ya kutangatanga all over, first of all, even the basics of setting research objectives and identifying the research problem is a problem. So unatangatanga, unatapaka. And I'm actually addressing the young scholars here. And by the way, you heard what Prof. Bukusi said, and Githu, the young minds here can decide to be different. You can just decide to be different. And the starting point is to punish yourself to be grounded in your area of endeavor. Then you'll be strong. So, when you are circling a topic for the first time, you might not be exactly sure where to start. And most of the time, the amount of work ahead of you is overwhelming. Whether you are writing a paper or formulating a business plan, it's important to narrow the scope at some point. And research helps you identify the most unique and or important themes. Now, those ones don't come by kneeling on your knees and praying. You are able to choose the themes that best fit the project and its goals when you engage in researching around that area. I keep on giving this story. When I was doing my PhD in the School of Business at Kenyatta University, I was very frustrated at the topic. I was trying to relate entrepreneurship to business to a social condition. That was what was in my head. And the social condition was the HIV/AIDS pandemic. And I was trying to see how can I use entrepreneurship to mitigate the impact of HIV/AIDS on the people affected by the disease and even the people who have become victims of that disease. And just connecting those ideas became a problem. I did a lot of reading. I even read the work of Mahmoud in Bangladesh on social entrepreneurship over and over again, but it was not clicking. And then, in those days, you had to go to the cyber cave to access internet. So I was in Eldoret in a cyber cave, and I logged in, and call it serendipity or just the fortune of encountering good luck. I bumped into this article that was telling me there is a connection between the environment, the values, and the resources. And it is that connection by somebody called Thompson that then just opened up my mind, and I was able to connect entrepreneurship in a social situation to a condition in the environment. Now, that doesn't come by accident. It comes when you have read thoroughly, and research then allows you to narrow the scope. Point number 6, I think research teaches you better discernment. This word discernment, I don't know whether you are on internet there. I would have liked that. I would have wanted you to type the word discernment, highlight it, and go to the thesaurus and let me see the synonyms. So doing a lot of research helps you sift through low quality and high quality information. The more research you do on a topic, the better you'll get at discerning what's accurate and what's not. You'll also get better at discerning the gray areas where information may be technically correct but used to draw questionable conclusions. when you choose research, just know you have chosen that rugged path. I don't know how many of you have the courage to read Revelations. Me, I fear reading that chapter, Revelations. Revelations talks of the narrow and rugged path. That is what research is all about. So if you want to get better discernment, better understanding, better conceptualization, then you have to do a lot of research around your area of engagement. The other point is that research introduces you to new ideas. New ideas. Oh my, how much have I learned? Every time I am reading something, I'm looking at an article, I always get new information. You may already have opinions and ideas about a topic when you start researching. But the more you research, the more viewpoints you'll come across. And this encourages you to entertain new ideas and perhaps take a closer look at yours. In fact, the more you read in an area, you tend to change your mind about something and figure out how to position your ideas as the best ones. Of course, the young men and women here, that is not very worky stuff. This thing of reading and articles after articles so that you can have new ideas come in and better discernment is not really worky stuff. What is worky stuff is to listen to video clips of the UDA Kenya Kwanza or which is this other one? Azimio. That is more wacky. That's what you discuss in the corridors. Uliona jana, jamaa. Did you see this and that? Those are the things. Some of you even use those kind of things to gain the courage to talk to that boy or that girl you have been admiring. Umekuwa unamwangalia lakini sasa umepata nafasi about Sakaja and his certificates. So unaanzia hapo. Sema huyu Sakaja bwana, how? Then you start talking about more wacky things. Not these things of reading articles and getting discernment and new ideas. Research helps with problem solving. Whether it's a personal or professional problem, it helps to look outside yourself for help. So depending on what the issue is, your research can focus on what others have done before. You might just need more information so you can make an informed plan of attack and an informed decision. And there you have a topic. Yeah, thank you very much. Discernment is the ability to do what? To obtain sharp perception. Most of you are very blunt in your ideas. You are so blunt. And even in your language register, you are so obvious. You are so obvious. I don't know how many of you, I'm talking to the young man, I'm not going to talk to my colleagues. I remember when I was in Mangu High School, at lunchtime, Mangu High School, lunchtime was githeri with pineapples. Wanapika githeri and then wanakatakata pineapples wanaweka ndani. You can imagine pineapple into hot githeri. But the interesting thing that time was when the kengele rings and the dining hall goes dead, because now they were reading names of people who had received letters. Letters, you know what letters? Maybe I'm talking to another generation. For us, it wasn't, WhatsApp or what, there were letters. So wanachukua prefect anasimama kwa meza na mabarua. Anasoma jina, so and so. Even the letter, you would look at the envelope. Zingine zilikuwa Croxley, very expensive. Zingine zilikuwa these ordinary ones with blue, red around it. Zingine on top, you'd see even perfume. You could see a stain of perfume. I don't know what some of you would write in those letters, by the way. Sometimes I wonder, what would you write? Even the sentences to put there. You'd be hard-pressed. What am I saying? When you read a lot, your language register expands. And when you write letters, whether they're love letters or ordinary letters, people get attracted to them. Research helps you reach people. Very important, to reach people. It is used to help raise awareness of issues, like it was mentioned here, climate change, racial discrimination, gender inequality, pollution, poverty, drug abuse, and so on. But without hard facts, it's very difficult to prove that climate change is getting worse or that gender inequality isn't progressing as quickly as it should be, or the young generations are becoming prisoners of drug abuse if you don't have the facts. So the public needs to know what the facts are so they have a clear idea of what getting worse or not progressing actually means. So research allows you to get the statistics, the data, the hard facts to reach people, to reach governments, to reach churches. And then, finally, for me, research encourages curiosity. Having curiosity and a love of learning takes you very far in life. And this is a research that is being housed in the School of Law. I hope, Bernadine and the faculty, I hope you are really engaging these students in a lot of reading. Then you will be strong. Research opens up to different opinions and new ideas. It also builds discerning and analytical skills. And that's why, after my experience in Iowa, I want to send the head of languages in the fall semester to Iowa to go and sit there for a week or even 2 weeks and sit in their what are called communication and writing centers in the library. You know, a lot of our students cannot communicate, as somebody mentioned earlier. You have the ideas, but you cannot package those ideas in a manner that people can understand what you're saying. Some of us cannot do even basic presentations of PowerPoint. Instead, it is a PowerPoint, but instead we copy and paste a Word document onto a slide. So you just cease to be interesting. Some of us don't know how to communicate a marketing message. I see it even with our School of Communication and the marketing department in this university. So, Daystar, we need to introduce a very strong writing and communication center, both at Nairobi campus and main campus. And those centers are not run by professors. They are run by students. They are actually peer learning centers. You get students who are very good in writing. They are there to help the others build and make their articles stronger. If you are coming to do a presentation for defense, you go to the writing center and they help you on how to bring out the best of slides, etc. So, I think curiosity also builds discerning and analytical skills. I'd say that, and the research process rewards curiosity. So when you are committed to learning, you are always in a place of growth. And I wish I could say that better. Curiosity is also good for your health. Studies show that curiosity is associated with higher levels of positivity, better satisfaction with life, and lower levels of anxiety. So for me, this conference on research and development is important because of what research is. Now, I want to talk about two aspects of how we present our material. And the first part of any research presentation is, of course, what you call your introduction, or what you're going to tell us first. Now, it is hard to hold attention if you cannot give us a compelling narrative hook. A compelling narrative hook when you are introducing to us your research problem. And many times, many of us who read your work just go through a lot of anguish over what you're trying to say. And most of the time, my interest goes away from reading what you have written. You must have a powerful narrative hook. For example, because of time, but for example, if you are talking about dangerous driving, the dangers of reckless driving, or nowadays, every Kenyan is on the phone as they're driving. Can you use a quote as your narrative hook, for example? And I'm just quoting here Albert Einstein. And he was very good at introducing his work, an essay on anything. So if I use his thinking, if I wanted to do an essay on restricting cell phone use while driving, I would use a narrative hook like this one. Any man who can drive safely, this is Albert Einstein. He said, any man who can drive safely while kissing a pretty girl is simply not giving the kiss the attention it deserves. I don't know whether you get what I'm saying. So if I want to talk about don't use a cell phone when you are driving, I would say, in my introduction, I would say Albert Einstein once said, this is not me, any man who can drive safely while kissing a pretty girl is simply not giving the kiss the attention it deserves. What a powerful narrative hook. Now you'll be very interested in to know what am I going to say. Am I talking about kissing and pretty girls? No. I'm talking about the cell phone and driving. And now you can be able to say why you shouldn't be on the phone while driving. It doesn't take an Einstein to realize that cell phones are not the first, nor will they be the last driving distractions. We don't need more restrictions on cell phones. We just need better drivers. I am sending your mind to tell you, even when you are presenting that work, you must attract your audience if that research is going to receive the attention it deserves. I'll give you another example. Some people say computer programmers have a saying, garbage in, garbage out. So the next time you read the results, and I'm talking about the polls. Now I'm seeing statistics, 43, 38, what, in the papers. Those poll things. The next time you read the results of the latest poll in Kenya, consider the polling method, the sample, and the source. And remember, garbage in, garbage out. So we pick a statistic in the papers and we are very excited, but we don't know how that statistic was born. Ladies and gentlemen, you can also, in making your work interesting, you can also do a lot of compare and contrast. Comparison shows similarities and creates a sense of familiarity. Contrast shows differences and creates tension and expectation. In fact, the fundable proposals are those that create tension and expectation. Yeah, why would somebody want to give you money if you have not done that? So you do not have to be writing a compare and contrast paper to use this as an introduction strategy. I'm at the introduction of a research output. I was talking to somebody the other day in the US, and this person told me, when I was 7, I thought my father was all-powerful and could do no wrong. When we are in primary, class 7, class 8, our fathers are our heroes. Huh? And then the person said that when I was 17, I truly thought he was a jack. Because now he was putting restrictions on you, and you just thought he was being stupid. I'm not sure whether I'm getting this message the way I want to get it. If you want to put your research outputs so that they are attractive, you must be able to have a powerful introduction. You must have a narrative hook. And I'm saying you can use comparison and contrast. So this same person said, my father wasn't the God he seemed when I was 7, but he was sure a lot better and wiser than I thought he was when I was 17. But most of us write in such a plain manner that the tension and expectation we look for in your research outputs is not obvious. Professor Githu and Bukusi talked about basic sciences. I think basic sciences just mean being grounded in the literature in the area you want to engage in. And coincidentally, Some of you walk around and ask people, come to your supervisor and say, give me a topic. I've heard that many times. Unaweza kunisaidia na topic ya research. Then you really define Africa to its truest meaning. Some of you come and say, I want to do research in this area. And then I ask you, how many articles have you read in that area? No, I will start to read. What am I saying? I always tell my students, you don't think about research topics. Research topics just pop out of what you are reading. If I was talking about transcendental leadership, just read 4 or 5 articles on transcendental leadership and your topic will just be born. But if you haven't read, you now go to the definition, you'll go to the dictionary and ask yourself, what is transcendental leadership? And then you start crafting a topic around it, not anchored in any knowledge base. I'm urging all of us to appreciate the significance of research and therefore be compelled in looking for the beacons that make your research strong. I want you to be provocative in your statements in the introduction of your research topic. Use statistics, glaring statistics. Capture meaningful quotes. Do comparison and contrast. And you'll be moving closer to having a research project that will win not just acclamation, but will win support. When I was doing my PhD, one of my colleagues, I don't want to mention her name, decided to do a study on moving the twilight girls from the streets into business. So don't just say, oh, they are on Koinange Street. She's as a PhD in business, she did research to understand their condition and then provide strategies of migrating them from the streets to business. And this was in Mombasa. So she went to Mombasa and rented a house in the equivalent of Majengo or whatever you want to call it. And she lived with them. That was an ethnographic study. Lived with them. In the evening, she would do iyo kujipodoa podoa, put on all the lipstick in this world, dress scantily, and go out as she was studying their behavior patterns. And then we would engage in conversation with them how much they got the previous night. And what were they able to do with that money? Even aspects like, I got 200 shillings or 300 shillings, and I sent 200 shillings to my mother because my 2 children are staying with my mother. And then she designed strategies. Among that group of us, she's the only one who had a thesis that was taken up by UNDP to fund the Twilight women and give them funding to start micro businesses to get away from that unfortunate situation. So don't do research for the sake of research. Again, that was mentioned. Ladies and gentlemen, today, that work has led to very heavy microfinancing of UNDP, AID, to youth groups and vulnerable people in society. Finally, how do you formulate your thesis in research? And what is a thesis, by the way? When we talk about thesis, what goes through your mind? Thesis is your conceptualization of sorting out the research problem from the introduction up to the use of your findings. But what is your thesis? Like this lady you were with, what was the thesis? The thesis was mitigating the impact of undesirable social practices. So what is your thesis? And then, of course, you begin to look at works that have been done in that area, and you develop your topic, and then you start the research process. I have seen very interesting topics. And when you give me a topic in research, and the topic is not discussable, in fact, the golden standard is the topic discussable? So if you give me a topic like a dog is a four-legged domestic mammal, or a friend is someone who is always there for you, or humans need oxygen to live, those are not discussable. And some of your topics, by the way, you look at them and there is no tension or debate in that topic. So it ceases to be exciting. Can you make, instead of telling us dogs are four-legged domestic mammals, how about if you say dogs are smelly, they are dumb, they are stupid, destructive, eating machines, if you want to call them. And I couldn't live without mine. Me, I have many dogs. You see, that is discussable. But how do you reach a point where you have a discussable topic? It is because you'll have done intensive literature review and you'll have gotten perspectives. You're not creating the wheel. You'll have gotten different perspectives and then you bring them into your situation. So many of us don't reach that level because we have not done adequate reading around the topic we want to research into. And by the way, that is really the difference between Daystar and MIT. That's the difference between Daystar and University of Cape Town. That's the difference between Daystar and that other university that keeps on getting those huge grants and publishing many, many papers. I think As I conclude, I want all of us to look inside ourselves and ask, are we really engaged in research that will bring about development? So, if you're a dean of a school, how many of your theses have been picked up as a whole proposal for funding by whoever it is? How many publications that came out of that thesis have had a very high I index or H index under the Google Scholar segmentation or classification? Director of Research, I want you to go and take all of us faculty in Daystar, can you go and cumulatively tell us, I have added all the I index and the H index of the journal articles in Daystar, and this is our statistic. And then be bold enough and sample Nairobi University, sample Strathmore, sample Oxford, with the same sample that you'll have done in Daystar, and look at their I index and their H index, and you'll be shocked. That is the reality. That's why for me today is the most productive day, because I've engaged with what is productive, other than signing appointment letters or approving procurement vouchers, and people coming to my office to say, have you heard? Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you very much. We want to have a plenary. We have had 3 speakers, and as part of learning more and engaging, we would like then to give an opportunity. We have a few minutes so that we can get clarity, maybe challenge certain ideas, maybe contribute, make a comment. So this is what we'd like to do. And we would like to encourage our students from Daystar, from the various universities that have come. As part of your learning, we'd like to encourage you to ask questions as well, so that maybe there are issues that you think are very intriguing, you think some things way up there. You can ask Professor Iro how he publishes 2 books or 3 in 2 years, and he's a vice chancellor. He approves all these things that he just said, you know, signing letters of appointment and all this. So if you can we get the mics around so that we can then be ready? You don't need to come. And then we will then start from there. Dr. Awar, I guess we have people that are writing this. so that we can be able to go. So you say your name. You say we are directing the question to a particular of our 3 keynote speakers, then you let us know. And then we take about 3, we respond to those, maybe another 3, and we should be done. So by a show of hands, as I pick my, Prof, please help me with my notebook, and Professor Waidima. So can I see, by a show of hands, yes, Dr. Adoli, Dr. Mogute. Thank you, Prof. No, yeah, thank you. One more. Yes, there's a student. We are happy. We want to begin with a student. Please, whoever has the mic, give the mic to that student. Okay, give it to Dr. Adoli, so that the 3 can go together. Then go back, give it to Dr. Moguta. Please put up your hand, Dr. Moguta, again. And then you come this way. There's a student here. Please put up your hand so that can be seen. Okay. We begin with Dr. Adoli, please.
Thank you, Prof. Mine goes to Professor Bukusu. And I was inspired by her presentation, and especially to remind us about the HIV and AIDS research and the status of that. However, in your argument, you still indicate what we see as a disparity in research funding and also inequalities that still bring to forth the north-south dichotomies of disparities in terms of how much research input we are putting outside there. So I want us to have a reflection about this, because I sort of tend to hear this a lot in research caucuses. And Professor Bukusu, could you just lead us into that conversation? How can we endow ourselves as African researchers to bridge that gap? So that, yes, we have our African issues, we are being left behind, but we have excellent researchers. What are we not doing? How do we bridge that gap so that, again, it's not a question of the North, the South. It's a question we understand our context moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Dr. Mogute, one question each.
Thank you. I want to appreciate all our keynote speakers for their wonderful presentations. My question is directed to Professor Yero, our VC. I have sat at his feet a few times, and I have heard him echo over and over again about teaching of research in this university. And as far as the Prof is concerned, there is a gap. I do appreciate the fact that that gap has been identified. But my question is, what do we do as a university so that we can be able to seal that gap? And probably starting with me, who teaches research. I teach research at the undergraduate level. And I will want probably to be empowered more. Areas of weaknesses to be pointed out even further so that it can be clearer where do we pick it up to be the best in the world map. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ari. Yes, our student. Apparently his mic, is it on? Can we get more people helping around? Yeah, you can go on.
Good afternoon. My name is Njapit Joseph from the University of Nairobi. I am a student leader, the Secretary General from the School of Law. My question is directed to Professor Yiro, and I would also have wished to ask to Professor Bukusi, and in the same extension to Professor Guido Muigai, but I'm honored first to be in the presence of such an enlightening research conference. I will only say that one will want to hear you the whole day, the whole night, and morning still. My question is, it stems from the sentiments of Professor Yiro when he started that. When he went to America a few days ago, he realized that students were not on their cell phones. Students were on laptops. Students were busy researching. I would want to use the same words you used when quoting Albert Einstein. And I would want to paraphrase and say, a researcher who's seated doing serious research with their phone, that only means that they are not giving good attention to the phone. Because for real, honestly, in our campuses and in our generation, one of the biggest enemies of research, I'll say for sure, is social media. We have a generation which is majorly spends most of their time in WhatsApp, Facebook, and Twitter. My question then is, I also want to relate this to what Professor Bukusi said, that we are in a digital world where we also get information from these platforms. How do we then now balance the digital world with the intensity which is required to produce such eminent researchers? My final remark will be to the congregation at large. Do you think that this generation, Generation Z or Z, do you think we have the intensity, the requisite character to measure up to the levels of Professor Yiro, Professor Bukusi, and the Attorney General Emeritus? Do you think we have the requisite intensity as a generation to reach to those levels? Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. I think we can take a little bit more so that when they stand once. I'm sure they have gotten them. Another round of 3, so that, yes, somebody here. Yes. So there are 2 here. That looks like we'll have. Yes, please, Asha, please give that one. Yes, there are 2 here. Put up your hands so that it's this other side. This other side. Turn. Yes. Yes. Just a moment. Yes. And then there's somebody behind, right behind. Yes. Those 3. We can begin with the gentleman here. Apparently, that one is not working. Can we begin? Yes, let's begin with her. That should be Anne?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate the presentations that have been done. I got to fully to hear the one from our VC. Thank you very much. And I would like to say that mine is a comment on the general aspect of research and how you, and how you bring it out, especially when you are addressing young scholars. I think historically, research has been made such an impossible, difficult, almost only for a few selected ones. And as you were talking about, you must have a powerful narrative. Use a quote, for instance, and you gave us the quotes, and then you told us about sometimes not just believing what we see, we need to ask ourselves, what is the polling method, sample, and source garbage in, garbage out. And that says a lot. So basically, I just want to say thank you for making research look like something that we can all do and enjoy, and not have to really do research on subjects that seem researchable when you, as a researcher, you're least interested in that area. And I think I'm speaking for many. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Anne. Next, did you get, who has the mic? Yes.
Thank you very much. My name is Damaris Amenya. I'm from Daystar University. I have a question for Professor Elizabeth Ann Bukusi. And I am very glad that you touched on the issue of HIV and AIDS in Kenya. I want to find out from you about TB. TB and another disease that I'll talk about. Let me first talk about TB. TB is really a pain in many counties here in Kenya. And what really puzzles me is the way the treatment for TB takes. A complete dosage of treatment takes about 6 months. I find that to be too long, and this has been on for some time now. I would like to know from you if there's any research into that, and if there's any end in sight to that, and also why that is the case, and yet there's also a vaccine for TB that has been around for maybe 100 years or something. Another disease that I wish for you to maybe tell us about is this disease called Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. It's a disease that has become very rampant, people forgetting and the memory almost getting depleted completely. But one thing I have realized is that the memory of at least the patients that I've interacted with who are relatives is lost to about 80%. They have a 20% chance of recovery. Because they don't forget completely. They can almost remember something. But there seems to be no remedy for that. So is there research into that, and is there any possible solution that we can see in sight from Cambria and from you as an expert in research? Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. And the director of research has instructed me, and I agree that we need to give more non-Daystarians. So I don't know, let me see.
So my name is Kaaka from the University of Nairobi, Faculty of Law. And I have 2 questions, although one I might not be able to raise because it touches on climate, but we haven't got any presentation concerning climate. I'm also an activist in climate change and also the founder of ESA. So my question is, basing on what Professor Laban have just told us, about 90% of the research you do, we rely on the Western institutions for resources, funding, and all that kind of things. So there was a research we did earlier on concerning the issue that is affecting us as a country. If you look at Mathare, for example, the slums thing, we were thinking, how do we make conditions and lives there more bearable than the condition it is currently? And we thought of coming with a way whereby instead of having the slums, we come with buildings that goes up, kind of story buildings that can be able to accommodate those people in slums. But then again, we were so much limited in terms of resources and where we can rely on, because we did a lot of research, we did data collection, methodology, and all that kind of thing. So my question is, how do we improve the institution we have, for example, in the country, to be able to accommodate the knowledge and the know-how now, and especially the finances now to be able to put those things on the ground and to lay the idea that we have. Because earlier on, the former Attorney General had mentions of the companies that started. He said that they began on the dormitory clubs in schools. But then again, I'm sure even in this room, the young people that are here, they have millions of ideas. But the problem is, and you have to get to the root of the problem, how do we now interpret the ideas we have on our minds now to the real work on the ground? That is the major challenge we have in Kenya. And if you can be able to come up with, equip our institutions or our or rather our research institutions, funding and such, will be able to ensure that we have the correct thing. We have a student at the University of Nairobi who came with special gloves, that can interpret the sign language to audio. I know majority of you know. And I'm sure there are ideas. Even here in Daystar. I'm pretty sure there are people with ideas. But kindly give us now, how do we now? What is the way? How do we go to ensure that we have the right resources, we have the right connection, we have the right people to be able to make sure that the groundwork is feasible, not just ideas, but to make sure that they work. Thank you.
Thank you. I think, yes, now that you are the neighbor, we'll allow you and then we'll take the questions.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Colin Smugo from the Faculty of Law, University of Nairobi. I am first glad that my alma mater, that is Professor Airo, is here. It's an inspiration. I think I also went to Mangu High School, but things were different. We didn't eat githeri and pineapple. That notwithstanding, I had 2 questions, but I think the first question has been asked by my senior, that is Njapit, whether this generation, the Gen Z generation, has the capacity and the temerity to handle research. The other one is, I think the recurrent point in this conference that we are constantly realizing is that there is a sharp disconnect between the academy and policymakers, especially in African countries, in particular Kenya, because we see that the challenges that we are grappling with each time are issues that can be addressed by those in the academy, because I believe the academy has so much opportunity and capacity to contribute to development. Do we have a disconnect between policymakers and the academy? And if we have a disconnect, how can that be addressed? Is it through policy making or what? I think that those are my 2 questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll allow our keynote speakers to respond. Professor Bukusi.
Thank you very much. Those are very challenging and interesting questions. Let me see if I can do my best to respond to what I can, and I'm glad the VC will go after me because all the difficult ones I will leave for him to answer. So starting with Dr. Rodoli, I believe, the question about inequity. How do we make a difference and really bridge the north-south divide? We've started. Kenya now has a national research fund that I know you're aware of. And it is putting out calls for training or providing funds at a master's level, a PhD level, and even institution level. So that's a good start. But it is so far from inadequate. The amount of money they give is not much. You can't do a clinical trial on 5 million Kenya shillings. You just can't. It's not possible. So we need to put more money into those places to give us more funds for research. Number 2, even with those who've been funded, sometimes the funds are delayed. So you have your research idea, you go to research ethics committees, you get your approval, your money is not available. A year later, the money is coming, things change so fast. So even the systems that then give this money need to be made efficient. So more money needs to be put in, we need to make them efficient. The third thing I would say is collaboration. Very little research happens now in silos. A lot of the work is multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary. So we need to learn to work together. It's not just about, did University of Nairobi do this? No, collaborate. University of Nairobi, Daystar, Cambridge, collaborate because that's the best way to do things. If Cambridge has a lab that can do the work, you don't necessarily have to create a new lab at Daystar. Use the Cambridge lab to the maximum. Create the second lab when the Cambridge one no longer has enough capacity to be able to do the work. But we don't do that. Each one of us wants to have our own little thing rather than building to have something that's really big and that's effective. Now, Joseph Japet, you asked a really good question about Gen Z. You know, Gen Z has so much potential because for you, the world is your space. Professor Hiro described letters, which you're wondering, what is that? What does it look like? Does it grow? Does it walk on legs? Yeah, people used to write physical letters and post them. You people ask, where is the post office? Why is there even still a post office? Post box, what? Because for you, information goes between now, something happens in China, and everybody knows world over that it's happened. So you have a lot of potential. The question you should be asking, I think, is not do you have the hardiness, the temerity? Do you have the conviction? The question is, how much are you willing to give? The challenge with your generation is the desire for instant, immediate gratification. Let it happen now, because that's the way your world works. Information flows at a fast rate. Research requires perseverance. And that's what a PhD is about, by the way. PhDs are not so much about brilliance, but that you have the willingness to stick it out. I don't think anyone has ever finished a PhD who has not wanted to quit. It requires that you keep going. It's not the brilliant people who get PhDs. It's the people who are willing to do the work and to stay with it. So my challenge to you would be, you actually have the potential and the opportunity. Because you're bright, then you have all these opportunities available to you. When I get a new device, I ask one of my sons or someone to figure it out for me. My grandson, who's 5, can figure out some things before I do. You give him a gadget, somehow he knows how to make it work. I'm still thinking, where are the instructions? Can I read through them? It's because you look at the world with a different viewpoint. My challenge is, can you take that viewpoint, add to it the willingness to persevere, and nothing will be impossible. Indeed, as Professor Hiro said, and as Professor Mugai said before, you have the ability to think out of the box. By the time you get to our age, we are thinking in silos, because we've been thinking for so long, we do business as usual. But you don't see those limits. So let your unfettered minds use that lack of limits to create those new spaces and do the impossible. When we are thinking, that's hard, you're thinking, just jump and keep going. Make use of that platform. You know, Anne made some interesting comments, and I want to take it back because maybe Professor Hiro can add to this or talk about it better. I think we need to start from the grassroots. If we teach our young people to ask questions, if we teach them to be curious, it will help. The problem with learning, and I experienced this myself when I was in school, if you asked questions, the teacher got annoyed with you. In fact, you would get punished. You'd be like the student who was not listening. But the difference is that when we teach people to be curious and ask questions, they not only learn, they're always innovating and thinking about what's the next thing. But we want people to learn by rote, and that's where colonialism comes in. Because the colonial education was not supposed to free your mind. It was supposed to teach you to only reach a certain level, to be a servant, to work in a certain limited space. It was not to allow you to grow to your highest potential. No, you needed to reach just a certain level that they wanted you to get to. So can we do the kind of education that allows people to think out of the box? That doesn't say, and I was even told this at university level, you will learn what I have said, you will memorize it, and when I ask you in the exam, you will repeat it as I have said. But that's not what we need. We need people who say, can you argue and tell me a different way and why you think it's different and why you think we should do it differently? Because that's what will grow our mind. 2 more things that I will say, and then I will sit down. Damaris, you asked questions about TB. TB used to take 18 months, by the way. Initially, it used to be 24 months. We narrowed it down to 18 months, brought it down to a year. So 6 months, we're doing well. You ask an important question, can treatment be made shorter? Yes. The question is, who's willing to put money into the drugs, new drugs? Who's willing to put money into the research that is needed that will allow us to shorten those periods? And even as you talk about TB, let me remind you, they are what we call neglected tropical diseases, diseases that affect people in the tropics, largely sub-Saharan Africa. Nobody even bothers to do research on it. Look at areas like Turkana, where we have echinococcus. People are suffering. Their livers are extended. They have massive ascites. Nobody's interested in doing the research. There's no money in it. They can't pay for the drugs. People will put money into drugs that produce things like Viagra. There's market. People will buy it. Even those who don't need it buy it. Alzheimer's, which you mentioned, yes, we do have a need for doing a lot of non-communicable disease research. It's a problem in this country. Apart from talking about HIV, right now there are very few Kenyans you can talk to, and they won't tell you that they know someone who's had cancer. Why do we have so much cancer in this country? What are we doing, or what have we done that's allowed this explosion? Is it just that we're diagnosing more? What kind of cancers? What kind of treatment? Who's putting money into determining that and understanding it? People are always raising money for somebody with cancer to go for treatment somewhere. That money goes out of the country and never comes back. We still don't have enough facilities to treat cancer in this country. As a gynecologist, I am really saddened. Every time I hear there's a woman with cervical cancer, a preventable and then treatable condition, it's heartbreaking. So there's a lot that needs to be done in the area of non-communicable diseases. And again, we just need to put in what it requires in terms of the infrastructure, the research funds to be able to make a difference. We do need to know, why are we losing so many Kenyans from cancer, diagnosed way too late, so that nothing can be done. And in finishing, I think they're good questions that were asked, both by Kaka and Collins, University of Nairobi law students, asking about how to really improve our institutions and also raising the question about money and what we're really putting money into, how the academy differs away from the policy. One big issue that we as Kenyans, and I own it as a Kenyan, is that we have learned to worship money. So what do we see as the best thing? The person who has money. It's not the person who has knowledge. And we don't care where that money came from. We don't want to question, how did they get it? Where did they get it from? What are they doing? So long as, if you have money, the one who has the most toys wins. So it's our values that are here in question really. If we can recognize and start changing our values in terms of not just what gives us information, but what gives us solutions to what helps the citizenry, the majority, then it will make a difference. But so long as we are worshiping money, and so long as whoever has money, that's a person we vote in, that's a person, no matter where the money comes from, no matter what the money is doing, then we've lost our values, and then we pay for it in all these other social spaces where people end up suffering because the right decisions are not being made, because we don't have the right people in those spaces to make those decisions. Prof, you'll answer all the difficult ones.
Thank you. Let's clap for. First of all, I really want to thank the students from University of Nairobi. This is one way of wanting to be. The fact that you came for this conference is a big step. And the other universities who are here, including my own students. I really want to talk very briefly about what Joseph brought to the table about social media. And if you asked me, social media is the opium of the African mind. That is now our biggest immobilizer. If you go through those Twitter accounts and you go through Facebook and all that, by the end of the day, you ask yourself, what is my takeaway? There is no value, very minimal value, because we are all responding to one thing and tons and tons of responses laced with hatred and emotion and name them. until sometimes I feel the young generation, your generation, you are actually outsourcing your brains to Google. You are outsourcing. You literally not develop the capacity of your brains, and I shudder what will happen 30 years down the line with you yourselves as individuals. Because the brain is a living organism, and its function is to think, interpret information. And you know that it is, those cells become continuously active if they are engaged. So I have no doubt that this generation of the youth are much more exposed, they are brighter, if you want to use such words. But they are not exploiting that capacity in a structured and demanding way. And I just want us to be honest with ourselves. Maybe you have Kindle on your laptops or on your whatever, but just ask yourself, how many books have I read since January? And have you noticed that when you read a book, by the time you finish with that book, you are never the same again? There are aspects of that book that become part of your conceptualization, part of your perspective, and part of your language register. So you are never the same again because you read that book. But if we keep on downloading all kinds of things, and then all you do is forward them to the next person, you can see what we are doing to ourselves. And so, I really want to encourage faculty and the nation as a whole, and Africa particularly, to rethink on how to engage our young people, because they have greater capacity because of their level of exposure. Collins also from University of Nairobi, you asked, is there synergy between academy and policymakers? Of course, the answer is no. When I was at WITS in South Africa, Witwatersrand, the government, the R&D, research and development grants, are actually sent to universities. And universities, if you are in the School of Education, you'll be dealing with matters in education to inform policy. In Texas and A&M, you have so much grants coming to universities to carry out that research. You'll be shocked today that CBC, the competency-based curriculum, is a strange phenomenon to all the universities in this country. It is concentrated in one institution where I was, the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development. But then you ask yourself, where are the brains in the country? Where are they domiciled? They are in the universities. So we're talking about policy in relation to academy. And universities should be accounting for grants from the government by showing how much research they have done in medicine, even in the social sciences. Today, there is so much that is needed in the area of values in this country. The first lot of CBC students will be landing in universities in the coming 4 years. The universities have no idea on what that entails. So you see, we are going to have creatures coming into a system who will remain amorphous until they get out of that system. And that is the dilemma that we have. And we are hoping that I was hoping to see constructive engagement around education reforms in the country by the people who want to lead us come August 9th or 10th, wherever it is. I want to encourage the students. I just want to encourage the student to pick your own path. Just pick your own path and decide, this is how I want to go through my first mountain. This is your first mountain. You know, most of you are now learning, then you'll get jobs, you'll get married, you'll educate your children. That's the first mountain. Second mountain is where some of us are now. You're doing service. You're giving service to mankind. Can you decide just to be different? And I would like to encourage many of you not to wait to write books later on in life. We have a very young, interesting young, 2 or 3 students in Daystar whom have influenced a bit. And they're already publishing books with mainstream publishers. That's what we'd like to see from you. Many of you can give us inventions in many other areas, but you must ground yourself in the knowledge. And that is what research is all about. My colleague, Mugute, you talked about, we know what the problem is, yes. And something has got to be done. I think it is very painful. I've just told you, I am pained. I am very pained. There's a group of PhD students in business in this university. I taught them research methods. I had not even gone through a third of the work. And I was told that the semester is over. We are waiting for marks. You know, the VC doesn't go there. When I go there, I'm going as a hero, a lecturer. But Daystar, you need to rub your conscience and ask yourself, are we doing the right thing? We are not. So, what are we doing about it? Directorate of Research has to mount courses, and we are having courses, again, in those related areas. I don't want to get into them. But even this morning, I was telling her, I would like to see seminars held. We must spend money on capacity building if we want to be different. Professor Githu Muigai mentioned, you know what China did 30 years ago? They set up 100 top-class research universities across China. Then they sent their best students to the best universities in the world. If you went to all these big universities in the US, in Europe, the Chinese were the largest proportion at PhD level. Look at what has happened to China. It is taking over the world. There's a small country called Rwanda here, the size of one of our provinces in Kenya. Do you know now they're putting up a Carnegie University in Rwanda? It will be as good as Harvard. And it is going to take the best of brains in Africa into all the faculties of human endeavor. Again, don't be surprised when in the next 15, 20 years, Rwanda will have, their level of development will just be different from all of us. I went to China on a World Bank program when we were at the Centers of Excellence of Moi, and we went to the top universities, Shanghai and the others. Everywhere you went, you met an African. And when you asked them, where are you from? They were either from Botswana or Rwanda. Their government is picking their best and taking them there to compete with the best in the world. We should be able to do the same. I've learned something from the profile of Githu Muigai from Nairobi University. You notice, end of first year, he was #1. But they got industry to give awards. That is a lesson for Daystar. When our top student, the highest GPA in first year in School of Law, is there a merit criteria they can get. How about the top student? I've never had my dean say, you know, I have an amazing student. He's an A student with a GPA around 4. Have you ever requested for a scholarship? You know, I mean, that's what it's all about. I don't know my Dean School of Business. You know that I gave 5 scholarships. Yeah, for the top economics students. They are doing masters fully paid by Daystar. I'm not talking about those students. I'm talking about Kenya and the human resource. And how do we encourage? Somebody asked, how do we then help? So, deans who are here, can you go out to industry, get awards, come to Daystar management, and let us have ceremonies to award these students. We will begin to produce people who will have a stronger sense of purpose in life, and they then will become the VCs of Daystar or the attorney generals of this country moving forward. As I finish, because I have to run for another meeting, Prof, I think Africa, we need to carry the burden of blame also. You know, we keep talking about funding the North. Look at the R&D in the national budget in Kenya. Look at, just Google, find out how much does the Kenya government allocate for research and development. Negligible. Compare it to that other country. So I think if you are determined to move, we will not be crying about funding. KEMRI is one of the best research institutions in the world, if you ask me. But they are constrained because the people driving the agenda have no respect or worth for research. So when you tell them to spend billions on research, it doesn't make sense. Some other things make sense. So we must also begin not to keep, I don't know, I struggle with this one. For how long? We are in the South, so we are always dancing on the periphery. All the time. We fear the center, where there is heat, where there's competition, where there is mystery. We don't want to go there in the way we do things. So I would like to encourage the students here. This is the beginning. Go to conferences, moot court competitions across the world. Go and compete. Then you'll be different. But you see, you can't go for a moot court competition if you are always on your WhatsApp platform. Where uko tu hapo. And the best you do is send love messages. That's the best you can do. But those of you who will come out and say, I want to be good in this area, in the space of law, and you become strong, you'll be surprised where you'll find yourself. I agree with collaborations. We need to collaborate more. We are now trying in Daystar very deliberately. Professor Murithi is here. We successfully worked with Penn State University. Some others are coming. We'll continue working with other universities so that together, even Nairobi University, Dr. Mwaka, the ADB project, Nairobi University and 7, we are working together so that we bring our strength as we move forward. Otherwise, I want to wish you well, and please get engaged in this conference today and tomorrow. Just remember, some things are not as obvious, but it is those ones, they are the people who look for things that are not obvious that make a difference in the world. You have heard of Israel. I go to Israel and I get mesmerized. Israel is not as big, I think Marsabit County, I think is bigger than Israel. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I stand to be corrected. But look at what that country is doing. It's in the desert now. It is supplying more tomatoes and fruits than the People's Republic of Kenya. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Can we clap? Can we clap for our two keynote speakers? Yes, we can sit on that side. As we conclude, we can sit there. As I ask, is it Asha or Professor Lando that will make the announcements? I know we still have questions. Please, you can write them down. Pass them to the front. Asha, please, you can stand. Probably we might have some time later on in the course of the conference to be able to respond to the matters. Thank you very much. We appreciate the students from those that are from outside Daystar and all of us. Thank you very much.
Let us appreciate Professor Bowen. Thank you very much, Prof. I know I'm the one standing between us and lunch. And I cannot ask us to pray for lunch before I make a few announcements regarding our afternoon session. But before I do that, even though the VC has stepped out, this has been very engaging, and I'd like to kindly request the office where this engagement is domiciled to kindly come and say a word of appreciation to Professor Bukusi and to our Vice Chancellor. And I'm asking our DVC Academic Research and Student Affairs to thank them in whichever way, because they have given us time, they have given us knowledge, they have challenged us, and as we move on, it is only fair that the DVC ARSA says a word of appreciation, then I make the announcements. DVC. As she's coming, I want one student from any university that is not Daystar to run and come next to me here.
Run. That's the request. Here he comes.
Clap for him. Thank you very much.
All right. We are very, very thankful that we've had a chance to listen, as I had said earlier, to the best minds in this country on the matters that they have addressed. Professor Githu Muigai, well known, well established, people who studied under him always appreciate. The generations of lawyers who sat in his class have heard them tell stories of how he's a fantastic mentor and teacher. And we thank him. Not only has he worked in academia, but also in practice. We've seen him in the highest courts in this world. And he's still very, very well engaged with the knowledge in the areas that he's teaching and writing and researching on. And he challenged us to be current so that we are relevant. He gave examples of doctors who may be dispensing medicine that is outdated and another example. So we really thank him for the time that he took to address this conference. Turning to Professor Elizabeth Bukusi, again, another top-notch researcher and practitioner, we want to thank you, Professor, for the time that you have spent with us. She flew in from Kisumu and is going to fly back just for this conference. And we appreciate your sacrifice to come and engage us and challenge us. Our very own Professor Laban Iro, again, many thanks to him for speaking to us and giving us many examples from different parts of the world so that we stand challenged especially those who are ever scrolling. Actually, I've heard that there's a disease of the fingers. I don't know the name that people are getting. There's that. There's also the bending. There's the use of the eyes. That is, that screen and the light on the eyes. So we need balance. And if you were to take our advice, it would be towards the other end, where there is more serious engagement with the texts and contexts and ideas, so that as you speak, you are speaking on things that will lead to development. So we thank our 3 keynote speakers very, very much, even as we thank the School of Law and the participating schools and directorates for giving us this opportunity. It's wonderful that you have come to this conference, and staying on and engaging will even show greater appreciation for what has been put out by Daystar University. So God bless you, keep us strong, engaged, and then that elusive thing we call development that comes out of research will come to pass and will move towards where God intended us to be. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam DVC, Academic Research and Student Affairs. Could we all stand as we make the next announcement and as we move? This podium has been full of Daystarians, and all of us have been patient up to this time. Before we head for lunch and before I make the announcements, I'd like this young man to tell you his name. I'm proud of him because he came running. You know, leadership, you have to take. It is never given. So at least he came forward just to say his name and lead us in a round of clapping for all of us for being here up to this time, as he's going to guide.
Yes, so ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Yeah, I must start by making 2 recommendations. One, that next time, maybe tomorrow, we can have the podium shifted to my left so that the planarists could see all sides, because we raised hands from that other side and no one could see, but it's fine. Secondly, I would like to observe that I'm Dedan Shadrach, the president of the Moot Court, Mount Kenya University, and wherever I go, I never go alone. I came with a team of around 25 students. A big clap for them. In fact, I'm persuaded to think that they hold the record as the only non-Daystar University students who have come with the largest numbers. A big clap for them again. Now, to the business of the day, I'm told to help us, clap for us, right? Yeah, I was having a question to Madam Prof, but I'll not do that right now. Our stomachs are really complaining. So the VC was having the Nyayo method of appreciation. I now come with mine. And, so my method it's called the motorbike method. A motorbike, when you have to have ikona gear tano, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I want us to do it like gear 1, kidogo, gear 2, gear 3, 4, 5. Sawa? So I would ask us to rehearse before we go into it, right? So 1, 2, 3, gear number 1, gear number 2, gear number 3, gear number 4. Into the business now. Are we ready? Let's prepare our hands. Let's prepare our hands. I'm looking at the one who is not preparing their hands, and I'm seeing them. Gear number 1, gear number 2, gear number 3, gear number 4, gear number 5. Enjoy your lunch.
Thank you very much, Shadrach. Remain standing as I make the announcements as we go for lunch. Let me also acknowledge, you have acknowledged Mount Kenya University. The other students, University of Nairobi, can you show your hands? Clap for them. Thank you very much. Mount Kenya, you didn't show your hands. Raise your hands. There they are. We can count. There are 25. Thank you very much. Any other university? Tutaonana nyuma ya tent. So we are now going for lunch. We shall resume at 2:30. We have added a few minutes because we are going for lunch late. And after lunch, we shall not come back here. We shall go to the breakaway sessions, which is in your program. We are having, if you see room 606, it means the 6th floor. So you take the lift there, you go to 6th floor, and on the door is written 602 or 6, whichever room that you have. DSC auditorium is here. So if you want the sessions, somebody was talking about environment, you'll come back to this particular room. And then the third room is 603. So you are either here or in 603 or 602. And then at 4:35 there, depending on how you run the sessions, you will come back out here and have a cup of tea and networking session. Then we go home, and tomorrow at exactly 8, we shall meet here and start all over again. So for our lunch, all of us will go here. Everything has been laid out except for Professor Bukusi, the DVCs, the principal, and the Dean School of Law. You'll go and join the VC on 7th floor in the council room. So let me pray for lunch. Father, we thank you for being with us from morning up to this moment. We thank you for the sharing of knowledge and all the interactions that we have had. We thank you for the meal that you have prepared for us. We ask you to bless it. Bless those who are making it possible for us to have it. And for those who have nothing to eat, dear Lord, we ask you to provide for them from your abundance. As we share this meal, may we get more energy to continue loving you and serving you, even as we continue to pray for the success of the second Daystar University Annual Conference. We ask all this, believing and trusting in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Karibuni sana.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me just add.
With over 38 years of excellence, transformation, and servant leadership, Daystar wants to share this experience with you.
Hi, my name is Anne David, a PhD student at Daystar University. The reason I chose Daystar University is because the program is a program that exposes any student, any person that's pursuing communication at the doctoral level to the international market. For your doctoral program in communication, choose Daystar University.
Book your intake now. Call us or visit www.daystar.ac.ke for more information. Daystar University, excellence, transformation, and servant leadership.
Dr. Motsoko Feko from Zimbabwe.
With over 38 years of excellence, transformation, and servant leadership, Daystar wants to share this experience with you.
Hi, my name is Anne David, a PhD student at Daystar University. The reason I chose Daystar University is because the program is a program that exposes any student, any person that's pursuing communication at the doctoral level to the international market. For your doctoral program in communication, choose Daystar University.
Book your intake now. Call us or visit www.daystar.ac.ke for more information. Daystar University, excellence, transformation, and